My name is Dr. Otto Saki. I'm a lawyer who worked with Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights from 2003 up until 2009. I worked in various positions within the organization. Initially started off as a board member representing the students' community, which was central to the generation of new leaders within the human rights fraternity coming in from law school. After graduation, that's when I joined Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights. In 2003, when I joined Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, it had already been in existence for a couple of years, having been formed in 1996. I think it was around February, by a group of senior lawyers. I cannot recall all their names, but those that I've seen from the archives would include the likes of Beatrice Mtetwa, Josephat Chuma, Tendai Biti, Kevin Lau, among others. I understand that from the interest of those lawyers to establish this organization was driven by the need to safeguard the values that were formed and achieved through the liberation struggle. And this was the basis of this organization being formed, providing public interest litigation support in major cases, supporting students and pupils in high school who were keen to learn of human rights issues. So a number of reasons came to the fore to sort of, inspire the formation of this organization. It was the first time that, lawyers in the country had come together to establish an entity on a public interest basis. And what was more so inspiring was that these were not just, ordinary lawyers, let me put it that way, but senior lawyers who were running, very commercially viable law firms who thought of the importance of establishing such an institution. And from 1996 to date, where you're celebrating your 30 years as an organization, we've seen phenomenal work being achieved. There are several moments that makes me proud to have been associated with this organization over the past 30 years. And some of them are major calendar developments in Zimbabwe. For instance, every time when the country has had elections, we have had cycles of violence, political violence, and the organization has been one among others, I would say, of course, that has provided support to communities who are facing, these forms of violations of their rights to assembly, association, expression, or in instances where we've had forced evictions, especially Operation Batrina, Clean Out the Filth, which was in 2005, where we were responding to communities who were being forcibly evicted from their houses, under an operation that the government thought was supposed to clean out the filth. And it turned out to be, both a political, humanitarian, as well as legal and social economic, disaster, with over 700,000 people being affected. As an organization, lawyers were available to provide legal counsel, were available to respond through filing of emergence agent applications within the courts. We are available to respond to vulnerable communities such as children and women who were being forcibly displaced and evicted. Those are some of the sort of high-level cases that we have had. But in addition to that, we have seen that over the 30 years, lawyers have tenaciously litigated before the courts. Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights and its members in particular have contributed to the development of Zimbabwe's jurisprudence by arguing before the superior courts, either in the Supreme Court, in the High Court, or in the Constitutional Court, thereby developing, the level of jurisprudence that is required to advance human rights. It could be on issues around freedom of expression. It could be on issues around protection and prohibition of torture. The cases like the Justina Mukoko cases, that you might have come across, on how the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court pronounced itself on the use of torture, incommunicado detention, and virtually stopped the ill treatment and the persecution of individuals such as Justina Mukoko and others. Those were all cases that Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights took, with the membership taking a leading role in the organization providing support to the lawyers who were litigating. There are many cases that we could, highlight, some in very remote areas, where through rapid response initiatives, with the lawyers, with the members, they would attend to in Mutare, in Gweru, in Bulawayo, everywhere across the country. And these stories must be told, because they are stories of resilience from the lawyers, and as well as determination in terms of promoting and protecting human rights. Like every institution and every organism, you go through cycles of growth, stagnation, disappointment, joy, pain, and all that. And I think as an institution, ZLHR has seen all those moments, and it will continue to see all those moments. But what I think is important to take note out of this organization is the resilience of its founding values. The belief that all human beings are born equal, and are equal before the law, and they're entitled to these inherent rights that no man should take away from you. I think that sort of resilience and overarching founding values that it has will make sure that this organization continues. I'm aware of situations when we started, or when I was part of the founding secretariat, when I joined ZLHR in 2003, there were only 2 other lawyers on board. It was Otto Saki, who would be the founding director, but there was Irene Petras, who actually was the second person to be employed in Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, who was a coordinator. But before Irene Petras, there was Beverly Hargrove, who many might not even recall, who was the first coordinator of the organization. And when these individuals were there, the organization had a very small budget. I think it was about $23,000, if not less. And for the first few months that I was working as a lawyer just out of university, I wasn't being paid a salary. And I know that the same was even for Otto Saki and even for Irene Petras. It was more or less like an allowance of some kind, because the organization couldn't afford to be paying a salary. And I know the moments are tough. At that time, we felt like, was this worth it? Were we going to survive? Were we going to make a breakthrough in getting funders to contribute, in getting members to be excited about the work? But we've seen the resilience, as I've said earlier on, of the importance of the founding values of the organization. At the time, we could have easily said, there's no need for us to do this work. There's no funding for this work. There's no interest for this work. And therefore, the organization could have suffered an early demise. But we soldiered on, and we continued on. And I believe that, similar moments are going to come in future, where it would look so bleak, where it would look so difficult. But the resilience in the concept of rights, the resilience in the members who own the institution, basically, is what will keep this organization going forward. As Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights celebrates 30 years of its existence, I'm confident that there are more years ahead of this organization. And what I hope and anticipate that the organization will do is to respond and be proactive in terms of the issues that are affecting human rights of today. So we are having newer challenges that are emerging. We are having a regression in terms of the protection of human rights, not only in Zimbabwe, but everywhere else. We're having a very complex, economic systems, very powerful corporate actors, very powerful either mining or transnational companies or tech companies who are introducing a new notion of the protection or the violation of human rights, let me put it that way. So as an organization, I think ZLHR is best placed to be responding to these emerging issues around human rights. I hope that they would be, very creative in how they speak about human rights. There's a generation that is out there that might not even resonate with the human rights language, who are now used to tech spaces, who are using TikTok, who are using all these applications, and might need to understand and appreciate that there's a rights elements that anchors, or that should be anchoring the use of these technologies, going forward. We also have an environment where survival on basic issues such as labor, work, are probably at their lowest with what we are facing in our economies, in the Zimbabwean economy, but economies everywhere, where economies are no longer saving the ordinary person, but economies are saving just a few, what some might call corporate capture, or what some might call a well-being economy, which sort of responds to the needs of everyone. Those, I think, are some of the things that the organization should be thinking about, and I have no doubt they would be able to sort of respond through the members who have been the backbone of this organization, through the secretariat who has provided the infrastructure that is required for an organization to remain viable. So as ZLHR celebrates 30 years of its existence, I'm confident and very proud to have been part of its history in a small way, but very much inspired by the vision that the founding lawyers had, who up to date still remain involved and engaged, but more importantly, instilling and bestowing those values in the next and the future generation of lawyers who are now walking the corridors of this organization, who are now carrying the flag of the name Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights within Zimbabwe and across, and for years to come. So within the establishment of Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, it was formed by lawyers of different pursuits, and political inclination or opinions. And it's a melting pot of those ideas. And unfortunately, over the years, because of the nature of the work that we were doing, we would be seen as heavily aligned with one voice over the other. But over the years, I think we have come to prove the point that Lawyers for Human Rights was not a partisan institution. It was, in the sense, political, because we're taking up political cases, but we're not partisan in the sense that we are supporting Party A over Party B. Yes, there are activists who came in who were working with the opposition, the Movement for Democratic Change, or the Coalition for Citizens Change, or whatever you might call them, all those various formations of the opposition. But there were also members of the ruling party, including some senior members of the ruling party, war veterans who were supported by this institution in their times of need. It's interesting and funny enough that in moments where individuals who were in power lost power, whether it's political appointment, whether it's ministerial appointment, whether it's fallout within the ruling party, they would come to ZLHR for support. That shows that we were, and that this institution remains a non-partisan institution that stands for the rights of all Zimbabweans. And I think it's important for us to continuously remind those that might allege that this organization was an extension or is an extension of the opposition. It's not the case, and it has never been the case, but it was an extension of the people's rights. So wherever there were violations of people's rights, whether you were black, whether you were white, whether you were yellow, whether you were none of those colors, this organization would come to support, and the lawyers would come to support and would take up those cases. I think that is the standing, the values that the organization stood for, because the values were anchored in the values of the liberation struggle, which is why if you see the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights logo, you would have to understand that when we are designing it, we were thinking about the blood that was shed, the different colors that we have of the hands holding the flame, as a symbol of demonstrating that we will support and will stand for all rights, regardless of who you are and wherever you come from. For as long as there's a need and there's a violation that has occurred, we will be able to respond. That is how I have understood Lawyers for Human Rights, and that is how we carried ourselves, over the years. And I believe this is how they will carry themselves into the future.